What's happening, my fellow culinary enthusiasts? I'm Josh Champion with Emerald Coast Chefs. Man, if there are two things that I love, it is a good sashimi grade fish and good quality red meat. So today we're going to be taking a look at the red meat of the sea and discussing one of my all-time most requested how-to dishes, tuna tartare. So stick around because I'm going to show you how to turn this into this. So I woke up in the mood today to do a beautiful tuna tartare, but the only problem that I ran into is all of the local big box stores only carry this neon stuff right here. Now, you may see this from time to time. In fact, you'll see this probably most common. This is actually a CO2 treated tuna, not what we want to use for our tuna tartare dish. What this is essentially is they treat it with smoke. It is a filtered smoke so that it has no taste or smell. But it essentially turns the tuna this pink color indefinitely. And so the problem with that, if you are in the seafood business, I understand why you would want to do that. But from a consumer standpoint for you and I, where we're walking in wanting to choose the best option for fish based on freshness, this makes it very difficult to tell how old the fish actually is. And you should just go ahead and assume that they're not using the premium cuts to do the CO2 process with anyway, so better go for the sashimi grade. So since this is all I could find, I'm gonna go ahead and put this where it belongs. I have a solution. Let's run and take a look. So if you know anything at all about the seafood industry in the Pensacola area, you're probably familiar with Joe Patty Seafood. I've been buying fresh seafood from them for years and years. So fun fact you may or may not know, but it was actually the Patty family's boats that they used when they filmed the shrimp scenes from the Forrest Gump movie. So practically by proxy, just go ahead and assume that the tuna we bought today came off the original Jenny from the real Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. Let's get to it. All right, so the first thing I like to do for the tuna tartare dish is to go ahead and put our glaze together. That's going to be essentially the base. It's going to be what the tuna and some of the vegetables get tossed in. So it's going to be the dominant flavor throughout the dish. So I'm going to start just with a 14-ounce jar of your favorite teriyaki sauce. Doesn't matter whatever brand you like, just make sure it is a good quality. You don't want to try to save 37 cents here on this one. And then we're going to go ahead and add in sweet chili sauce, and then a seasoned rice vinegar. So this has more seasonings and some herbs, a few other things added to it besides just normal rice vinegar. However, this is not mirin, which we would make like sushi rice with, which is a sweetened rice wine vinegar. But you can use any of those things for this. We're just looking to give it some acid, and I just like to stay within that rice vinegar category to kind of keep our flavor profiles on track here. I'm then going to add a little sesame oil. Be careful if you don't work with sesame oil a lot. This stuff is really strong, so probably somewhere around a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half. Less than a tablespoon will be more than sufficient. And then this is soy. We obviously have a lot of soy in our teriyaki sauce, so typically when I'm making sauces like this, I will go for a low sodium soy. Granulated garlic. All right, and then you can use a fresh grated ginger. The ginger that we encountered at the store did not look very good, so I actually just grabbed, this is a 4-ounce tube of ginger paste. You can find that right in your produce section in the refrigerated part. And then this is a 4-ounce tube of basil paste. And I actually always use basil paste whenever I make this. I just like the way that it incorporates into the sauce a little bit better than putting fresh basil in does. And then lastly, I'm just going to add the juice of a couple fresh squeezed limes. And again, I know I talk about this a lot, but I really recommend that you definitely use fresh squeezed citrus. But especially for this, it's going to give it a lot more brightness. It's really going to be the difference between just kind of tasting like a bottled sauce on the shelf or something that we actually went through the trouble to put together ourselves and generate some flavor with some thought and freshness in mind. We'll go ahead and stream in some olive oil, just about a cup. Now you could also use an avocado oil or grapeseed oil, whatever you have on hand for this. But I do actually like the flavor of the olive oil in here. Over time in the refrigerator, the oil may separate from the other ingredients in this. Don't worry about it. Just like you would a vinaigrette or anything, just make sure, give it a good whisk and a mix before you use it for your application. All right. Taste it for seasonings and flavors and see where we're at. Amazing. All right, so our sauce has been put together and we have this beautiful sashimi grade yellowfin ahi here ready for preparation. One of the things I really love about the ahi tuna from the Gulf is that it takes on that same natural sweetness that I see prevalent in other flavor profiles from other types of fish and shellfish in the Gulf. So for example, if you were to take this and then a yellowfin ahi harvested from much colder waters from up north, it would be a closer step towards the beef direction. So it's going to be a little meatier and a little more depth, but the ones that come out of the Gulf have that same natural sweetness to them that we see from the shrimp, or again, our scallops don't grow as big as they do up north, but they do have that natural sweetness to them. So we see that same flavor prevalence in the tuna that comes out of the Gulf. As far as what type of knife is best to use to cut our tuna, so chefs who typically are going to work around high-end fish and things like that all the time are going to use what's called a Yanagiba. It's a Japanese high carbon steel knife that is a single bevel edge, and it can get very sharp. It's a little difficult to use if you're not familiar with it, and that's probably not something that you have at home. So one good option for you, what I'm going to use today, if you're working out of a knife like a block set, you probably have a carving knife in there or a slicing knife. And as long as you haven't previously damaged that on chicken or turkey bones or something like that, it's probably seen a little less use than your chef knife, which means it probably has more sharpness left in the blade. And then you'll notice something like this one, it's got the scalloped edges. And of course, it's a little shorter in terms of height from the spine to the edge of the blade. So that's all going to provide less resistance when we're cutting against the fish. Having said all of that, the most important thing is that you're using a sharp knife. So if you know that your Sentoku chef knife is going to be the sharpest knife that you have on hand, that's the one you want to use, okay? So we'll start taking this down into little pieces. And so I like to make my cuts for this dish. It's totally up to you. If you want larger pieces, you're certainly welcome to do that. I would say I'm going right around 1/4 of an inch. A couple of things you may notice as I'm slicing through this here. You want to, let the knife do the work. So let the blade of the knife, see how I'm just pulling through. I'm not trying to use a sawing motion, and I'm certainly not putting any force whatsoever. I'm just letting the weight of the blade cut through the tuna. And that's what helps result in nice clean cuts instead of frayed and torn edges. In addition to having a very sharp knife, of course. You may also notice that the bowl that I have here that I'm going to be mixing in is significantly larger size than what would really be required for this amount of tuna. And the reason for that is we want to make sure to use a bowl large enough that it leaves us plenty of space to toss our tuna in our sauce and other ingredients with. All right, so we've got our tuna all cut up, and as you can see here, it looks beautiful. So time to go ahead and add our other ingredients and our glaze. So what we want to do now is add some flavors and some textures to the mix. So half a shallot, very finely chopped, and an English cucumber that we have peeled and then removed the seeds out of the middle and also diced very finely. Fresh scallions. We just slice these very thinly and use green part only. Sometimes I also use chives in this dish. Really just depends on what is looking the best in the produce department at the grocery store that day. These are toasted black and white sesame seeds. And then lastly, our ginger sesame glaze that we made. And you don't want it completely swimming in this. You do want all of the pieces of fish coated, but also our sauce is part of the binder that helps this sit together once we plate it in our mold. You do want to make sure that you do have enough sauce to get all of the tuna completely coated so that we not only have the flavor from that, but the practicality of holding the whole dish together as well. And then notice as I'm putting this together, I'm just kind of stirring up from the bottom like we would if we were maybe folding in something to whipped cream. But keep in mind, you are working with a very delicate fish product here that we took a whole lot of care in the way that we not only packed it in ice and cared for it to get home, but in the manner with which we cut it. And so we just want to make sure that we're not being too rough here and bruising that up or tearing it up before we have a chance to get it on the plate, since we put so much effort into it this far. All right, so everything is tossed and I think we are ready to put our dish together. As far as the type or size plate that you use, that's going to be up to you. But I do like to use something large enough that you have enough room to kind of explore through other sauces and flavors that are going to be on the plate. One of my pet peeves, especially when it comes to salads, I hate when I go someplace and they serve you a salad in a little bowl or a little plate. We always want to be thinking through the user experience of who's going to be eating our food and what it's going to actually be like as they eat it, so that we can build the dish in a way that complements that, not leaves them frustrated as they're trying to eat it. So to get this put together, I've got a fresh avocado and I'm just going to go ahead and use that as the base. I have removed the pit and then scored the little pieces of avocado here, and I'm just going to make sure that we have that layered somewhat evenly across the bottom. So we just want to get that where it's somewhat level down in there, doesn't have to be perfect, and we can go ahead and spoon in our tuna. Now this may take you a few times and a little practice if you're not used to using ring molds. You can find these just right on Amazon. They're not expensive and have a whole variety of uses. Now it may take you a little bit of practice to find the right amount of pressure, but without messing up the fish, I'll just take a spoon and work my way around the ring mold. And we're going to let this make several revolutions because I'm going to want that tuna to compress on top of the avocado that we've got at the bottom and fill any gaps that we have, as well as just get nicely packed in there. Again, not too tight. We don't want to damage the fish, but enough that it holds and stays together. And then we're just going to lift that very gently. So once this is plated and put together, kind of how you decide to decorate the plate, it's totally up to you. This is just some sriracha mayo, and depending on how you want to make it and how spicy you want it, it's 2 to 3 parts mayo to 1 part sriracha. And then this is just a little wasabi aioli. It's going to be a little bit more spicy. And this is just made with wasabi paste and mayo. All right, and then lastly, for some added texture, I've got some little wasabi peas here. And I just like to put a few of those over in kind of a cluster. And a few more of those sesame seeds right on top there. And then this is just a little seaweed salad. And I just like to use this as a little garnish right on top. Mm. The salt and the acids in the glaze really help accent the natural qualities of the fish. And the avocado really adds nice richness. Really good. Wish you guys could taste this. Well, my friends, as always, thank you so much for stopping by the channel today. If you got something out of this video, if you learned something, certainly if you make this dish, if you have any questions or there's just something you want to see us make in the future, please let us know in the comment section. If you're unhappy with your life choices and you just want to tell me I suck, please, it helps the algorithm just the same. Let us know in the comment section. Definitely subscribe so that you get the notifications when we release our videos weekly. So hit that bell. And again, thanks for watching.